So how did you connect with the Jackson Center?
Now, I'll tell you what happened there. Somebody had been through there and said, boy, you'd really like that place. I said, why? He said, well, they got a lot about Nuremberg. Well, step back, I spent 6 months in Nuremberg. And by the way, guess what I just found out in reading one of these books that I accumulate all the time? I was in Zerndorf, which is 9 kilometers from Nuremberg. At the barracks in Zerndorf, and I was sent there in 1964 to be in charge of a Signal Corps site. So I was an NCOIC, which is a non-commissioned officer in charge. I got sent there. So I just found out the other day, guess who's the Russian prosecution team stayed there during the Nuremberg trial.
Kidding.
Yeah, I come up with this stuff all the time when I'm reading it. I'm going crazy. When this person mentioned to me about stuff at Nuremberg, about Nuremberg at the Jackson Center, where is it? Man, Jamestown. So I walked in there, and luckily for me, Raleigh Kidder was there, whom I didn't know. And I'm walking around looking, and he's in the area before he went up into the auditorium. This guy comes up to me and he said, can I help you? I said, I'm looking around, I see some things about Nuremberg here that piqued my interest. Come on in and sit down, let's talk. So I go into the director's office. Yeah, you know the story. You've probably heard it many times. But so I sat down and tell me about yourself. So I said, yeah, I spent 3 years, 32 months over in Germany, 6 months in Nuremberg, blah, 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 World War II, this and that. How'd you like to come to be a docent here? I said, what is a docent? And he said, well, it's a fancy name for a tour guide. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll try it. But if I don't like it, I'm sorry. But I said, I'll try it. So I worked with another docent for a couple of times, and he said to me, it was Jim Moore. He said, you know more than I do. He said, you don't need to come with me. So I got a time, a different day than Jim was there. And so for almost 15 years, that's what I did.
I did it very well. And what during that time period, we established an exhibit in the basement called The Perpetrators. And you became known far and wide as the master of the Perpetrators exhibit. How did that connect? I mean, you clearly established a liking there.
Yeah, well, listen, as you well know, the Nazis were full of intrigue. And it piqued my interest, more so than you know, and more so than anybody knows except my wife. Because at some point in time when I'm conversing with somebody, that will come up. Okay? And then I start. Now, you may laugh at this, but I'm going to talk into this camera.
Please do.
No, I'm going to. Every night, when it's my bedtime, and I go to bed early because I rise early. When I say early, 5:15. Hit the treadmill 5:45 till 6:30, 20 to 7. Every night I go to bed, I go through the 21 Nazis that stood trial at Nuremberg. Their birthplace, some of their statistics, whether it's Carl Donitz being an avid antique collector, whether it's Julius Streicher and his pornographic collection, on and on. Hans Frank being an accomplished pianist, deeming German literature as the best in the world, Hermann Goering. So it's still there with me. It's never going to leave. But I can assure you that every day, at some point, I'll run some of that stuff through my mind, especially if I'm reading a book. And once in a while now, I may pick up something new and store that with the rest of it. But no, I was looking for some things to bring up for you today, and I came across the manuscript of the book that I wrote, and I keep looking through that stuff. I always have trouble with Von Papen's birthplace. Don't ask me why. The only place I can find, and believe me, I look, is he was born in Westphalia, which is a German state. But the rest of them, Braunau, where Donitz was born, by the way, it's the same name as where Adolf Hitler was born. Rosenheim, been through there, by the way, where Goering was born. The thing with the Jackson Center and the perpetrators is just, it's the intrigue that really got to me. I mean, why? Okay, blind obedience, racial hatred, lack of kindredship for mankind. That's the problem these people had. But they were inbred with it. Now people think, well, nothing new. That's not new. That inbred racial hatred crap has been around over there forever. Back in the days of Martin Luther. This is nothing new that their leader started hollering about. And the hatred for the Jews. So that thing just piqued my interest, and then when this perpetrator thing showed up down there, man, I went crazy.
You did?
I mean, huh?
You did.
So, good, bad, or indifferent, it's still a part of my life. It is.
And one of the things I want to do before too long is to get you up there when the building comes back open again, because it's still closed because of the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
Is to mic you up and have you go through the exhibit.
Yeah, I would do that. I'll look through. I will do it immediately. Not that I will refresh my memory with.
But I'll play well in advance. But I've always wanted to do that. And as a result, you had a chance to meet, because we would specifically, when we knew somebody was coming of note, specifically call you, even when you were somewhat retired from up there, to bring you in because you were that good. Do you remember some of the people you met?
Oh, Greg. Listen, they're in here.
Are they?
They're in here, yeah. There's all of them.
So name names.
Well, here's a good story. This is true. Did I tell you the one about Harold Burson?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You knew him, obviously.
Oh, sure.
And so, probably through you, but Carol asked me to go pick up Harold Burson. Yeah, give me a little bit of a biography, So, I picked this man up, all right? So I'm standing there at Jackson Center. Guy comes down the turnstiles. There he is. I said, "You Mr. Burson?" "Yes." So I started talking to this guy. And as you probably are well aware, it doesn't take me long to get a conversation going with somebody.
Yeah, you're pretty shy.
But I said to him, "Where are you from?" "Manhattan." "Yankee fan?" "Nope." "Mets fan?" "Nope." "I take it you don't like baseball?" "Nope." "Like football?" "No." So we're talking along, and pretty soon I'm thinking, wow, this isn't going to be fun. So we're going over 90, okay? And I said to make conversation, well, he said to me, "Hey, what are all these signs here?" And I said, "Well, you're in the Native American reservation here." "No kidding." I said, "Yeah, the cigarette signs, and this and that, so." So we're driving along, and then he finally said, "Well, what's your connection with the Jackson Center?" And I said, "Well, I'm a docent there." I said, I love stuff about Nuremberg." All of a sudden he said, "Well, I was there every day." I said, "I know that." He said, "Yeah, I saw Hermann Goering and all these guys every day." I said, "Wow." So I got enamored. All of a sudden the guy just starts taking off, and I couldn't get enough into my head. Well, guess what? All of a sudden I see a sign, Sherman, or not Sherman, but at the end of 90.
Yeah, Westfield. Ripley.
Yeah. He said, "How far is this place?" I said, "Oh, it won't be there too long." I said, "Hey, by the way, just to get him off the subject, because I think he knew that I made a mistake, but I said, 'You ready for a sandwich, Harold?'" "Yeah." So I stopped, I think it's the Vineyard on 20 in Westfield. Went in, hardly anybody there. No, this is a true story, and it's funnier than daylights. I've told it a million times. So we go in, and he ordered a sandwich, I think tuna fish, and tea. For most of my life, I was a Pepsi drinker, just for whatever reason, okay? So I ordered a sandwich and a Pepsi. And the lady said, "We don't have Pepsi products. We have Coke." And I said, I don't want a Coke, I'll have a lemonade." She said, "Okay." She wasn't anywhere from any farther away from me to you, Greg Peterson. And Harold said, "What's the matter with Coke? Why don't you like it?" I said, "I don't have any against it. I just never drank it." He said, "Get one. I'm the president of the board of directors." So I called the waitress back. I said, "Hey, ma'am, come here a minute." So she comes back and I said, "Hey, scratch the lemonade, give me a Coke." And Harold started laughing. He said, "Doesn't matter to me." I said, "Does to me."
Yeah.
So but he laughed over it. We got a big kick out of it.
He was huge in Coke.
Yeah. So anyway, I enjoyed my time with Harold, Eli Rosenbaum, and I just, and you, Greg, I have to thank, along with Carol, for giving me that opportunity to be with these people. Whitney Harris, are you kidding me? So one time he came through I picked him up, he was in a wheelchair, and Anna was pushing him through the turnstile there, and the minute he saw me, he broke out in this big grin, and I thought, wow, this is something. So anyway, I had the opportunity of my time as a docent at the Jackson Center to meet some of the most distinguished people this country's had, whether they were military people, authors, Stan
Weintraub.
Yeah, Stein Weintraub. There's some letters. I got a card and a letter from him in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking here just to go through the people that are in your book for the camera. My God, you do have a who's who. Is Eve Bybetter from Eve Bybetter for the
French prosecution team.
Ernest Michel.
Yeah. Holocaust survivor.
James Meredith.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's Whitney, you and Anna. Ben Ferencz.
Carol called me when at the time U.S. Senator Hillary Clinton was coming. And I don't know, oh yes, I know why she was there. She was promoting the Congressman Higgins?
Yeah, Brian Higgins.
I think so. So Carol called me and said, "You want to come up?" And I said, she said, "Would you come up and help with the flow of the crowd?" And I said, "No, I can't make it today." She said, "Well, Hillary Clinton's going to be." I said, "I'll be there." So I went up for that, but that's how I wound up with that one. But I just can't get enough of the, I remember vividly all of those people.
Alan Dreyfus, Henry King.
Yeah.
John Barrett, there's Alimo, Judge Alimo.
Now let me tell you something about him, okay? Yeah. Now this is history. Alimo was a POW.
Oh yeah.
Okay? And his part, his experience with that in The Great Escape was Charles Bronson. Mm-hmm. Did you know that? You did. Okay.
But it's amazing because we played out. He didn't talk about it that much, and then we brought it out at the program. I showed that Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
You know, that whole thing.
Now we were sitting at the Jackson Center, and he finally was alone, and sitting just inside the door to the right. So I was standing there, and he kept looking at me. I'm telling you, Greg. He kept looking. He saw my name tag. I said, "You have a problem?" He said, "No." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I live in Warren, PA." "Oh yeah," I said, "I know where it's at." He said, "I live in South Carolina now." I said, "Yes, I'm well aware of it." He said, "Who are some of your family? Who are your grandparents?" I'm telling you, Greg. I said, "My grandmother was a Cosmano." He said, "I knew the family in Italy."
You're kidding.
Excuse me, not Italy, Sicily.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh?" He said, "Yeah, Termini Amrise." I said, "That's where my grandmother's from." I said, "My grandfather was Peter." He said, "I knew of him, but didn't know him. But I knew your grandmother. They only live 6 miles apart."
My God.
I said, "Are you serious?" So I thought, okay, I'm gonna trap this guy. I said, well, my grandmother had two brothers. He said, yeah, I know, Sam and Bill. I said, well, do you know that Bill was my godfather? He said, no, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, he was killed on Route 60 going to Jamestown in 1955 or something like that, 53, I think. Yeah. He said, yeah, I knew them. Really? This guy, what was he, 92 or something when he was up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a true story.
And then you had this exhibit, I remember this.
No, geez, yeah, that was crazy. That was a good time. That was the most fun I had doing that.
Yeah.
But
what was the event? There's Steve Massa surrounded by war criminals. Was that an event, May of 2011?
Yeah.
Who was the audience of this?
German Americans. You had to be one or the other.
Yep.
It was a club, okay? That was the name, German American
They're
Club.
from Erie?
Yeah. So is it Dr. Garvey?
Yeah.
Okay. When he came through the Jackson Center, I was there as a docent. And we went through with him and Ferky Ferrati.
Yeah.
And it might have been somebody else, maybe not, just two maybe. So you took them through the Jackson Center and I was there. So I don't know, ensuingly, he called Carol and wanted to know if I would come and speak up there. So she asked me if I would.
Yeah.
And I said yes. So that's how that started. So I called Paul Fisher, who was in charge of getting speakers for this group. And I said, well, do I have to be careful what I'm saying about the Nazis? He said, no, they want to hear it. So I said, okay. So he said, they have to be married to a German, or a German has to be married to an American to be a member there. Okay. So I said, okay. So anyway, as it turns out, it's like 62 people there. And the problem there was that, as you may know, when you speak with people that are older, much older, they tend to lose, yeah. So he says to me, Paul did, the second time I called him to make sure everything was okay, he said, Steve, you're going to have to take a break for these people because they're elderly and they made some desserts. And I said, well, that's all right, that's fine. So I worked judiciously to get information down to an hour and a half. That's my time, hour and a half. So I took this out, took that out, eliminated this, eliminated. So I'm going along and I was on Stryker. And I took 5 of those from downstairs, the perpetrators, 5 of them with me. Actually, Adam Bratton came. He came. Yeah. And he did, that was at the Jefferson Educational Society that Bratton came. So I took these things up and I set them up on some easels, and I was on Stryker, and all of a sudden Paul says, Steve, we got to take a break. I said, okay. Well, there was like 10 pies there, 15 dozen cookies, and these people are mingling around. Next thing I knew, it was 45, 50 minutes that they took a break, and it cut back on my time, and I wasn't pleased. But I just kept that to myself. Yeah. And then I got started again, and about 20 minutes later, Paul said, Steve, you have to end now. I'm like, really? But that's what happened. So another time I was speaking at, Carol asked me to, at Sheridan, at older people. I forget the name of the group. So they introduced me, and they wanted to hear about Justice Jackson. So that's what I talked about. But they introduced me, and I walked up, big auditorium, and I walked up, and I'm standing there, and I just get ready to talk, and I look, and these people, maybe this shouldn't be on camera, but it happened. These people had a snout for a pig on a strap, and there were 50 people there or so, put this snout on, and they sang this song about pigs. I'm like, really? How much fun is this going to be? So anyway, I did the thing on Jackson there, and they had pizza afterwards, and it was fun. A couple of days later, it must have been the following Thursday. Yeah, because I was there on a Thursday. And this guy comes in, and I recognize him. He's the one that ran this group of people. He come in, he must have had 100, 110 books with him and donated them to the Jackson Center. They were all history books. Yeah, and so I forget, Sutton? No, it wasn't Sutton. Anyway, that was crazy. It was really crazy, and it was a lot of fun. They did pay attention. They really did. And when I asked if there were anybody had any questions or anything to offer, they had some reasonable things to ask, and it was okay. That particularly was about Jackson. At Meadville, I spoke down in Meadville with some people down there. Pictures are in there. They were pretty good. Jefferson Educational Society, there was a woman sitting way in the back, and it's the only time I had a problem doing that. And it just irked me because she was writing some things down, and she'd be coughing like crazy, and it was disturbing me. So I just politely asked her, we don't take notes when I'm speaking. I'm sorry. And she just put the pen down or whatever, and that was it. So, but Dr. Garvey was there, and he had to leave. But he came back, and he said, gee, Steve, he said, I hated to leave. He said, I was so intrigued about listening to you talking about Ribbentrop. Now, you know Ribbentrop. You can talk about, I mean, the guy was just a loony, vain person, you know, stupid. But he said, geez, I really enjoyed getting a kick out of it. Well, I'll tell you what he really enjoyed. Now, a French diplomat, and I don't know if it was Bonnet or who it was. I don't think I ever read who, but a French diplomat called him a imbecile. And Ribbentrop will go down in history, even probably today yet, as the worst diplomat in European history. Did you know that? Yeah, I've read that many times in several books. He's considered the worst diplomat ever in the history of diplomacy in Europe.
Did you meet Sid Shavitz, the actual?
No, I didn't. I was not available at that time.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I missed him, but no, I did not.
Well, we have an interview of him.
You gave it to me.
Oh, did I? Okay,
you gave me
good.
a copy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you gave me a copy.
Oh, there you go. You should have.
No.
By the way, what inspired you to take all that head knowledge and turn it into a book?
Well, my heart attack. Okay, so I'm recouping at home. Couldn't do anything. Greg, I damaged 80% of my heart. I blew it up. Okay, didn't know it at the time. I didn't. But anyway, that's another story. But so I'm sitting at home and I can't do anything. Now, when you tell me I can't do anything, that's a problem for me. So, you know, I'm right away. I'm going to miss the Jackson Center. Can't go up there. And I can't do anything. So I can't mow, can't rake, can't whatever. So I'm sitting there thinking, all right, now I've been reading about these perpetrators, and I've been reading about the Nazis judiciously. And when I started to volunteer as a docent at the Robert Jackson Center, between you and me, and it'll be on camera, I was appalled at some of the docents that didn't know anything. Now, they may knew a little bit about the Kent family or the building itself, but as far as the Justice Jackson goes, or his claim to fame at Nuremberg, they knew nothing. I don't know if you know that, but they didn't know much. And I used to go in and relieve somebody, and they'd be knitting or sewing, or, you know, I'm like, what? Reading a woman's magazine. So when I was there, when there was no visitors flowing through, I'd always have a book of the Nazis, World War II, or Nuremberg, Justice Jackson. So I'd read and read because I was interested. It's like fishing or hunting or golfing. If you really like it, get everything you can out of it. Do the best you can. I looked at that, the same thing with Nuremberg, Justice Jackson, and the Nazis, you know. Read, get it all in here. Why not? Why read about Superman or, you know, politics? Nothing. So That's what happened. So that's how, again, getting back to the intrigness and Justice Jackson being from Warren County, and this thing up here, I mean, I couldn't wait to get up here. You don't know, and I will tell you, and you can ask Carol Drake if you'd like, there were times when Raleigh and Adam were there as the directors that I may have been up there 3 times a week, maybe 4. Just depends. If somebody was coming, boom, they'd call me. And
Well, you were the superstar.
well, I used to tell Carol and Raleigh and Adam, look, I don't want to offend these docents, but yet I did. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to not come up here because Eli Rosenbaum was coming, or they wanted me to go to Buffalo. He would come and recommend that I picked him up. He'd call Carol. I want Steve to come and pick me up, or maybe you. I don't know, but somebody. Carol would tell me that. Yeah, and so the same way with Whitney, you know. So yeah, but the whole thing was just the perpetrator thing. Just today, I mean, I could walk down there and go through probably not as good as I could 5 years ago because I haven't done it years. You asked me about my interest in history. Okay, I had German for 2 years at school. The teacher in Warren was Richard Kaufman. I found out that he was undercover in Germany the last year of the war.
No kidding.
Yeah. One day, a group of, and I happened to be there on that day, or did I get called maybe? But irrespective of it, a group of World War II veterans from Camillus, New York, came with their wives. Now, some of the guys were by themselves, but there were some wives there. So I took them on a tour, and they were more than gracious, and asked questions more so than any group that I had. No, we were in the auditorium, and just out of the blue, and I was talking, see, I was to the right, so I might have been right where that interpreter picture was, just to the right. And out of the blue, some guy said, "What do you think of General Patton?" Well, the partner fell over, you know. I said, well, I really like the guy, and it's the only mistake that I made in my years there, and many times there. I said, I don't think we'd have won the war without him. And some guy spoke up, and he was ticked off. He didn't believe what I said, and he didn't like it. And no sooner, and he was in the front, sort of, and most of the guys were behind him, and I could see these guys rolling their eyeballs like, uh-oh, I got this guy riled up, and they didn't like it. They didn't like him. And so these guys started speaking up. Yeah, you're right, sir. You're right. Do you like it? Well, I said, I read about him all the time. I have all the books on General Patton that are out there. My library is full of him. And so that ended that. So that was one of the experiences, but it was a great experience with those guys because they were veterans from the Bulge.
Sure.
Okay. Now, again, I would say probably, Greg, the interviews you had with these veterans, the John Stantons, the John Rupchiks, of course not Joe Frontera because I talked to him every day.
Rex Graham?
Rex Graham, yeah. And so I feel bad that these guys are gone now, the Fred Civies and these guys, but I don't know if you feel this way, Greg, but when I got to meet these guys and talk to them, of course I knew some of them, but Rupchik I didn't know, and Stanton I didn't know, but you get a sense of feeling, a good feeling, especially from my perspective, where I've read in many books where this guy might have fought. This battle here, this thing over here, this island in the Philippines, whatever, like Joe. And so it's a good feeling when you talk to these guys that have been there and done what you've read. So that was a good time. That was a good thing for me to be around those guys when you interview them, to hear their stories, you know. The Rex Graham thing where the weeds were flopping in the breeze and the machine guns were shooting at them, and Rupchick jumping into the bulge, and I mean, you can't beat this stuff, you know.
Well, and to your credit, and I want to give you, in front of the camera, how you doggedly got a hold of these people, brought them in to the Jackson Center, which made it easier for us to do that, and even went great distances, like with Abby Abraham, to make that all a reality, so that now their story got preserved. I mean, that's, I don't want to say the bottom line, but we filmed it.
Yeah.
We found stuff that went with where they did, and now it's up on YouTube forever because of you.
When you asked me to go down and pick up A.B., I went down to Renfrew, was where he was born. It's just outside of Butler. It's a community then full of Syrians, and he was Syrian by birth. Mm-hmm. I assume miners, probably steel workers maybe. But I picked him up at the Veterans Hospital at Butler, and it's right off of 422. And so I walked in, and I mean, I had to walk like from here to, I don't know, 2 blocks. Parking lot was full. So I parked way away over here and walked over and went in. And I walked in, and this guy said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm supposed to be picking up A.B. Abraham. Do you know of him?" He said, "Certainly." He said, "I hope you got your earplugs on." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because he's going to talk all the way wherever you're going." So I said, "Where is he?" He said, "He's right over there sitting down, guy with a red hat on." So I went over, he had a red service cap, a red jacket, medals hanging all over the friggin' place. So I said, "A.B. Abraham, I'm Steve Massa, I'm here to pick you up." He got up, and he said, "Where are you parked?" I said, "Over here." But I said, "Just go to the door and wait." And so I assume he was probably 88 to 90 then, maybe. I said, "Wait right here and I'll go get my car and pick you up at the door." "Oh, no, I'll walk." Well, he was short, as you remember, Greg, and he walked like this. So we walked and we get in the car, and I'm telling you, he talked about everything from rags to riches, to baseball, to football, to military, everything. It wasn't anything he didn't talk about all the way up. And he said, "Hey, by the way," he said, "I want you to know that I'm going to be throwing out the first pitch at the, yeah. So,
Actually, I got that on film.
Yeah, do you really? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it was great. So I took him back home, and I stopped at Bonanza, which is no longer there, on 8. And I bought him supper, and we ate and talked a little bit. It was starting to get late, and I was a little nervous because I had to get him home, and then I had to turn around and drive back to Warren. So we got to his house. Now listen, I got to tell you this. It's weird, and you may appreciate it, but Fred Civey and Abraham lived in houses that you had to be within 20 feet to see. Did I tell you this?
No.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you. Fred's place was a path from here to that building across the street. Weeds, trees, nothing. You don't see nothing, just a path. He parked way over here, and he walked on this little path. Okay, and then you get from here to those books, and then all of a sudden you see this building. It was a trailer. Like, wow, okay. So he was sitting in a chair, Fred Civey. His back was to me, and he heard me, and he didn't even turn around, and it was a hot, warm day, and I was going down to pick him up to bring him to the Jackson Center. He said, "Steve, is that you?" Brenner fell over. I'll get back to him in a minute. So A.B. was the same thing. When I took him home, he said, "You're going to have a hard time finding this place." It's Hoffman Lane, by the way. I'll never forget it. And I drove down this dirt road, eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile, I don't know, and parked right here. I'm like, "There's no house." And I said, "We got to walk a little ways." And so I got out of the car. Now this is, I don't know, 7:30, almost dusk. And we're walking along, and all of a sudden, from here to them books, there's a 1-story house, dark, stained colored, rustic looking thing. And so I said, well, Abe, I said, thanks a lot for your day. I said, it was a wonderful experience for me. My pleasure. He said, oh, come on in. I said, no. He said, come on in and have a Coke. I said, no, Abe. I said, I got a 2-hour ride. Come on in, just for a minute. I said, okay. So I go in. He gave me the book, Ghost of Bataan, and Oh God, Where Are We? Signed them. And he said, come here, I want to show you something. I said, Abe, I got to go. Come here, I got to show you something. So he opens up a room. Now this is just a one-story. It wasn't run down or anything, but there was a room, maybe 10 by 10. Opened up the door, he did, and there were boxes. The room was jammed full of these boxes. He said, you know what these are? I said, boxes? He said, no. He said, in those boxes are letters from the families, mothers, wives, and children of all the people I identified on the death march. Wow. I said, no kidding. I often wondered today, Greg, whatever happened to them. Yeah. So I stopped 2 or 3 times to see them. There's cards in here from them.
I saw them, yeah.
Got some letters at home from them. But I stopped he sent me a card. He said, Steve, I'm getting married. He was like 91 or so. I said, all right, good for you. So I sent him a card back. Well, I might have called him. I called him several times. And so I was in Washington, PA for some reason, and on the way back, I got to 422, which goes over to 488, and I said to Nancy, I want to stop and see Abe. So I stopped had breakfast because we'd spent the night in Washington, PA, and I picked up the paper.
Passed away.
Yep, there it was. There it was.
Yeah.
So
well, you're such a good friend to make all of this a reality, and geez, you know, I can't thank you enough. And what I want to do, and I mean that seriously, when they open up, sometime I'll call you and we'll go down and I'll mic you up, and we're going to film you doing a tour.
I would do that. I that'll give me some time to refresh. I mean, I used to go through that about an hour and a half. It'd take me that long. But then I remembered almost everything I read, as much as I could about whether it was von Papen or von Neurath or Stryker. I just got a book on Stryker my daughter sent me last week. And she also sent me one that Joe Persico wrote. And by the way, Joe was a great experience for me too, because of his book, Nuremberg Infamy on Trial.
Absolutely.
But the book I got now is Piercing the Reich. Yeah. And I have to tell you, Greg, that in that book, it's almost like you're sitting there talking to Fred Sibby. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's amazing. Yeah, so I'm reading it right now. I just started reading it the other day, but the Stryker book I'll read after that. I just finished the book, and you should get this book, Erik Larson, ErikLarsen, The Splendid and the Vile. Have you heard of it? It's about Churchill and during that period of the Blitz. It's really, really fascinating.
And he's a great writer, Erik Larsen.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful.
Well, Steve, I can't thank you enough. This is fantastic.